Welcome to a small, medium, at large podcast. I'm your host, Gail Hyson, bringing you intimate interviews beyond normal boundaries. I want to thank all you listeners for subscribing, liking, sharing, commenting, and sticking with us as we approach almost our 100th episode. I want to thank my son Richard and my daughter Nancy and my husband David for helping promote, subscribers, to having listed people and showing our show in all the different places like Spotify, Google Podcast, all other different social media sites. I'm just returning after a wonderful vacation from New York, so I'm excited about being back here on our podcast. And I want to tell you a little bit about our special guest today. Edith B. Kiss is a holistic mentor, success habit coach, #1 best-selling author, humanitarian award winner, and international speaker. She specializes in guiding individuals from misery to peace within 30 days by integrating ancient healing techniques with neuroscience. Edith has dedicated her life to helping individuals break free from their limitations and embrace their true potential. As the host of Release with Ease show, Edith empowers clients to release deep-seated traumas and align with their true selves so they can live fulfilled and joyful lives. She has clients from all over the world, including the United States, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, Hungary, and Nigeria. Her clients range from millionaire traders to influencers to artists. Her journey from a 15-year career in petroleum engineering to holistic healing exemplifies her commitment to transformation and personal growth. During those years, she trained to become a Reiki master, and I hope I pronounce this right, a Sekim healer and a Karma Yogi practitioner. She has written the following books: Habit for Entrepreneurial Success, co-author; On the Healer's Journey; Rising from Abuse, co-author; and this year, The Gap Filler Success 2025. Let's welcome Edith here today. Hi, Edith. Welcome here.
Hi, Gail, and hi, everybody. Thank you for having me.
This is wonderful. Are you here today from London? Is that where we're speaking to you?
Yes, yes, in
Okay.
UK.
Wonderful. So I was just in London in March with my family. We had a wonderful time. I wished I'd have known you were there. I could have met up with you for lunch next time. So can you tell me what I always start with all of my interviews is about where you grew up, whether it was a spiritual home, and what your childhood was like, because I'm wondering if you experienced trauma or things that led you on the path that you're on today in working with healing others with trauma and things.
Really interesting. I grew up in Hungary, so it's like a communist socialist background. So we had no zero spirituality at home and zero religion. So it was
Oh,
really we were really a mindful family, like just being in the, working, doing things. My mom was a teacher. She had like three diplomas in three different things in teaching. And my dad, he was a chauffeur. He was more like working, driving, like a driver, and he also later had a farm, and then he was like selling agriculture stuff. So basically, I grew up with them, and I was really fortunate because they were always kind, and treated as well. But I grew up under a teacher's criticism and judgment, So I would say I always felt like my mom wanted me to get better through her criticism, So that was probably the kind of trauma I went through, So it was more a mental kind of trauma, being always better and being always the best. Like I had to be the best in class, or I had to, and then it was a lot of pressure because of that. And then I didn't like school. I was an introvert, a complete introvert. I was also overweight and not feeling good about myself, so I was bullied and stuff like that. So it was more like the school which I didn't like. My favorite part was always the summer when we were like on family vacations, we traveled, or we were at home. Like I liked that, and I didn't like it school at all. Yeah.
I uh, I can understand, especially the bullying part. And it is sad how cruel children can be. But often I've found that when you find out later in life that usually those children who were cruel to you were receiving cruelty at home. And
Absolutely.
that's why they didn't understand. So it's so easy to forgive once you know that, in your heart where that came from. So so you experience that pressure of always being able to know that you're supposed to achieve, yet you're supposed to do the best, and that is a pressure. And so, did you, at those times as you were growing up, did you have any experiences that were of a spiritual nature or that made you think there was something more than just teaching and the communist world there in Hungary, or what was
Yeah,
happening?
yeah, mostly where I think I connected most with my spirituality is was my in my dreams. Every night I went into a different reality. Every night I was traveling, having adventures. It was really like being in a movie every night. And then I didn't know as a child, like I thought everybody's dreaming the same way, you know? But then when I was telling my stories, then I realized that other people are not dreaming all the time or they don't have this experience. So that was a bit of strange for me, and I still didn't connect it. I didn't know what does it mean, you know. It was just like I thought it's just dreaming. And then later when I started to dive into more into religions and spirituality, because when I was a teenager I started to question it and started to read books about religions, like, okay, I never grew up with it, but I know other countries is really like, in other countries people really connected, you know. And then I've started to read books about it, and I loved Taoism. You know, I felt Taoism is so easy to understand, or Buddhism was very easy to understand for me. So I like that kind of a way of thinking. And later I traveled a lot into South America, so I also connected, like, okay, people, how Catholic, you know, Catholic church, and then how it's inspired them and how religious they are. So it was a lot of influence, you know. And then eventually I also had a good friend who was meditating a lot, and then he was also telling me that, you know, when you meditate you can connect with the source, and then you actually can step into the knowledge of everything. And then I was like, wow, you know, I was like in the beginning of my 20s knowing nothing about this. So when I actually started with spirituality, like consciously, it was because I started to have panic attacks because of my travels, and because I was away a lot and I was alone sometimes. I created some fears, you know, and some anxiety, or and then I was eating all kinds of food. I didn't take care of myself, didn't sleep enough, you know, lots of partying or whatever. So my body was also not enough vital, and that also initiated these panic attacks. I knew it later, obviously not back then. And so then I got first like a medication, you know, like they gave me a pill, and I was didn't like the pill, didn't like the effect of the pill. So I was like, I need to figure out something else. So then that's how I ended up with the Reiki. First I went to a Reiki master for some healings, and I really liked the effect, and then that's how I started with this. And then the Reiki master had other modalities as well. We were doing family constellation therapies, extra sense retreats. So I started to open up more and more to the other side of the veil, you know, like experiencing more of the other energies and then spirits and connections. And it was fascinating for me, and I really enjoyed it. And that was my sanctuary and my hobby, kind of, beside my real career being an engineer. And it went on for like 15, 16 years, you know, like that just experiencing it and healing through it and healing my family. And then whenever I had like relationship issues or this issue, that sometimes I felt like I'm lost, sometimes I felt some anger, or some, there was always something I could, you know, heal or fix. And then I really enjoyed like going back and see the results, you know, like doing the practices with my Reiki master, and then see the results. So I really enjoyed that. And when was the most pivotal moment when I decided to actually me also start doing meditation with people or heal people is started with me becoming a Reiki master, and then later get introduced to karma yoga healing. And that meditation, what is the samadhi meditation, which opens your pineal gland, you know, activate your pineal gland and opens your third eye. And for me, the very first time when I did this meditation, I started to receive so many breadcrumbs from the universe and very powerful messages and callings. Suddenly, it was like really powerful. So after like couple of months, I decided to do the whole course about this karma yoga healing, and then I even learned more about the healing techniques, the source memory healing to heal the traumas and other issues, you know, in life. And it was just like really powerful. And yeah, so I really like
So
that.
So I'm thinking two things. One was, how old were you when you left Hungary, when you moved away from your country, and that you were actually able then to access these things. So even though you were in a communist country, you were able to find books on Buddhism, and you were able to connect with and find people that could help you with meditation. So you were able to find things that you were searching. It wasn't like cut off from you completely. So
No, I think I believe that, you know, it's basically my family itself, you know, my mom being a teacher, my dad wasn't into any spirituality, you know, so basically they were really disconnected from this. So in
yes.
the country, there were people who were, you know, for example, the best friend of my mom who were actually learning some Reiki for the Reiki master. That's how I knew about it. But my mom was like, no. And then she didn't felt any calling to it, you know, so she was very straightforward. So but there was it in the country, but I haven't really experienced it, and it wasn't like really out there like in the you know, in TV or newspapers and something like that. And then, you know, everything changed after 1989 when we had the kind of the revolution, you know, in Europe. So everything shifted, and the more things opened up. So yeah, so that, and you know, my Reiki master was actually coming from Romania. She migrated from Romania to Hungary when she was doing these practices. So the country opened up more also to accept these kind of people as well, to coming in and spread this energy work, and then more and more people learned it. Yeah.
And you also, I think you did both things, which I think was very good. You followed that part, but you also completed your education to become an engineer in a petroleum company, which I think must have made your mother proud because she wanted you to have some sort of a successful career and be educated. And you were able to do the other things you were able to do because you had the background of that job to support you so that you could go and explore your spiritual and travel. Would that be a true?
Yeah, so I was passionate about actually the petroleum industry. I was passionate about doing work where I use my analytical skills, you know. So I enjoyed doing that kind of job, and I enjoyed the travel with it because it requires also to live in certain countries. And yeah, so first when I first time left Hungary was when I was 19, but then I was always back and forth, and I also studied in Hungary, but I haven't finished the university in 5 years. How I supposed to? I finished it 8 years because I always took breaks to travel. I just love traveling, and then experiencing other stuff, and then, you know, working here, working there. I was always taking some jobs, you know, in other countries, so that's how I was able to do that. So yeah, so it's yeah, I'm really interested in to learning new things and just experience the world around me. Yeah, and then the engineering job really allowed me to do that. Yes.
That's that. I just think that's. I mean, I just think that's a wonderful thing. Um, I wanted to talk. I have a whole bunch of different little questions here that may not be in order of how we're talking, but feel free to say anything as we're going along. Um, I'm thinking that part of the pivotal moments of experience for you was learning meditation, that must have been one of the first doors that opened up the pathway to you for other ideas and information started to come to you from the higher source. I was raised an atheist as well, and my family was of a Jewish background, but my father raised us all atheists. And I've always been grateful that I've never had any religious things. Like, I feel like that's the reason my intuition and other things are so much more accessible because I didn't have a whole lot of other things put in there. And that's what I think might be a similar experience for you as well, that you were free to read and learn what you wanted. Nobody said, this is the real way it is. This is what you have to do. This is what will happen to you if you don't do this. So I think that gives people like us a little bit more freedom to not have to get rid of certain barriers. So I was wondering if you could tell our audience about mindfulness and what the power of mindfulness means and what this is. Some people have no idea when they say, "Oh, I do mindfulness practice." Well, what does that mean?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I was just talking about it in one of my show 2 weeks ago about mindfulness, and then it's because there is like a misconception about it, I think, or there is like a limited information about it. Because when people think about mindfulness or practicing mindfulness, they limit themselves to the point that being in the present moment and having the awareness of their sensations or their breathing or their environment. So basically, sitting still and just allowing them to be present, you know, and then either focusing on themselves, like their sensation in their body and their breathing, or focusing on the outside world, like the birds chirping, you know, or the noises around them. So just being in the present moment. That's like practicing mindfulness, right? But when you really understand how mindfulness works, is basically there is three things you can control in your life, and these three things is your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions. And the real mindfulness is being mindful, is actually controlling those three things. And you would think like, yeah, I probably can control them, but when do you have negative thought patterns and you can stop them and then shift them into positive? That's when you how you control your thoughts. Because why we want to stay in positive thought patterns? Because when you think negatively, you start to create negative emotions, and when you create negative emotions, you make not so good decisions, right? And then you react because you get triggered, because of you can trigger yourself with your own thoughts, right? And that's why we say that we are our worst enemy.
Mm-hmm.
So when we actually start being mindful, the first step is stopping ourselves when we assuming the worst, when we have negative assumptions, when we thinking like terrible things, and the fear-based thinking, worry. That's what we need to stop, and then shift it into more positive mindset, more positive way of thinking, the hope, the trust, the that kind of way. And that's the first thing. And then the second, as soon as you start that positive thinking, that's gonna create positive emotions, that's gonna create feeling more joy, feeling more happiness, feeling more in peace and in bliss. And then you're gonna take different actions, you're gonna be more peaceful, and then you're not gonna react, you're gonna choose the things which is more like a compassionate or positive action. And that's what I call really that now you are mindful and you're living mindfully.
Mm-hmm. That's a great description. And also for people to not exactly think that it's not just living in the moment, it's paying attention to the three things that we think when we're in that moment. So thank you. I think that's a very good answer to this. I, I myself, I've been dealing with different physical illnesses and things, and I've been thinking a lot about the connections of the triggers between traumas and diseases. And
Yeah.
I myself have an autoimmune disease called Hashimoto, where it attacks your own body is killing your thyroid. I'm thinking to myself, what have I done that my body is wanting to do this to itself? It's not like I ate something that made it happen. It's something in my body that's wanting to kill my thyroid. Why did this go on? And then I'm thinking about, I just returned from New York and I had some very incredible experiences there. And when I came back home, I was having a very hard time walking with my knees and my leg. And my daughter and I were sitting there thinking about what was the spiritual representation of when the body all of a sudden's in so much pain you can't walk. Usually, the message for me means you need to take it easy and rest. That's if your body's not letting you move, there's a reason it's telling you this. But I, and I understand a lot about healing because we were raised with no doctors or dentists, and healing was all done through fasting. And so back in the early 60s, we lived in a vegan commune, which nobody was doing back then. And for me, I have a lot of trauma around all that. So I have a lot of issues with being able to eat and live healthy because I have so much trauma about the anger and hatred I have against veganism
Wow.
and the crazy things that these people did to us as children. And
Mm,
so there's a different era now in where people that are choosing to be vegans, or I do not recommend that children are raised this way. Having been raised that way, I don't think it's a healthy thing, but that's for other people to decide. But my feeling about this is that in all this health, I've learned so much, and yet I cannot follow it. And so
mm,
thus I'm dealing with different illnesses and sicknesses. And I know that this has something to do with the trigger thing because I can come along a ways and I'm doing pretty well and I'm managing my diabetes, which nobody else in my family has. Nobody else has thyroid. So it's hard for me not to believe these aren't hereditary. How am I getting these and why am I getting these diseases? And I hate falling into the medical profession, which I have, taking their drugs, but it goes against everything in my brain that I was taught by my father and that upbringing. So I've got this clashing of not wanting to take medications, but taking them because I also don't want to go into a coma or anything. And also not being able to eat a proper healthy diet that would maybe reduce my needs for all these medications. Because anytime I have an emotional issue, that triggers these depths of deep. I just turned 70. So these are deep rooted old things that even though through years of doing different energy work, healing work, therapies, all the different things, doesn't matter. They still resurface. And
yeah.
when they resurface, they end up pushing buttons in me that I resort back to all the things to do to my body that aren't necessarily healthy, like eating a lot of sugar or binge eating or, wanting to eat salt and sugar, or the things that I know intellectually isn't good, but I don't seem to have what you write about. And I don't know if I can learn this from you, but how to create these good habits to be able to change and shift that. And it's not like I haven't spent many years of my life working on these traumas and things. So
Yeah.
I, I'm it's kind of a loaded question, but
Yeah, I'm really glad. I'm really glad you brought this up because it's gonna be really it's easy for me to answer this because many of my clients comes to me after decades of other healing modalities. You know, so, some of them were even already Reiki masters. They were
me too.
angel healers. They were angel healers. There were, all kinds of healers, and then they still had issues after decades of doing all kinds of modalities because this modality is so powerful, this source memory healing. And many times what you're experiencing in your body is not always the results of this lifetime trauma, can be past lifetime trauma. So in your situation could be both because when you actually experiencing these triggers, it could be then when the veil is thinning, where there are, some portals, there are some numerological or astrological portals when the veil is thinning, and then that kind of timeline is coming into your current physical reality, and then you suddenly feel it more powerfully, and is actually helping you to heal it. So but how to heal it, that's the point here, right? So but the thyroid issue, many people is having thyroid issue, and then they taking medication for a lifetime. So thyroid issue is throat chakra, is about speaking up your truth. When you are having thyroid issues, it's about you not allowing yourself to speak up about something. You were either suppressed or you were criticized, you hold yourself back.
I have to tell, and my listeners are used to me crying. So if you see me crying, you'll know that that's normal here. That's exactly what just happened to me in New York.
Wow.
I almost word for word. And what it is in my last show, listeners heard that for 57 years, I've known that I had a brother from the same mother, but I was told I was never allowed to meet him. I would never be able to know him. I'd never seen a photograph of him. I just knew his name was Fred. And these unusual FaceTime, Facebook things happened where I received some birthday wishes for my 70th birthday in May. And in it was a message from a distant cousin saying, um, happy birthday. And I write back, I'm coming to New York. Would you love to meet each other? And in my mind, I'm psychically thinking, I really would love to meet my brother once. And I don't ask because I've been told all these years, and I'm thinking about thyroid and holding back right now when you're saying this, that I'm never to approach him. I can never speak to him. I can never say to him, hi, I'm your sister. Let's get together. So I've held that in, including other relationship issues with sisters and other members of the family, because everything was a secret and a lie. And
Mm.
for some reason, all the other participants that are siblings of mine, half siblings or full, never were given that information. Only I was given the information. And so then when I shared it with some of them, after all the prospective people died who said you can't tell them anything, I was rejected. And so I have this painful rejection experience about reaching out to family and being rejected by them. Well, when I get this message, I get a second text saying, your brother would like to meet you. And this is only a couple of weeks ago. And I'm just like so thrilled and excited that I'm going to get to meet this guy that I've known about for 50 something years and never been able to meet. And the whole time I'm played with the rejection button at the same time that maybe at the last minute he won't show up. Maybe he'll get sick and he'll say, "Oh no, I don't really want to see you." But that's a very big issue for me. So once I knew I was going to make contact with this person, I have been crying for weeks from this. And it feels like a pressure cooker, and I'm releasing slowly the 57 years of holding this, and you're saying throat, holding this information that I got to finally meet this person 2 Saturdays ago. And I didn't even know what he looked like. And we got to speak on the phone. And it was more than any kind of healing, positive experience I could ever happen to expect would be, is what happened. He was loving and affectionate and kind, and his life is a very simple life. He goes to his job, he enjoys baseball. He's like a good person, just a nice, good person, not complicated, not with a million drama issues, not with like a whole lot of baggage or something. And so when we met, not only did we drive the same car, but we ordered the same food. I mean, there was such a deep connection on the very simple level of connectivity, but I felt like I was missing that in my life for so long that I've been trying, I connect with all these other siblings, but this was like a different heartfelt connection that didn't have words. And even though I have close, loving relationships with the other ones I grew up with, I've always been searching for someone who loved my mother or who knew my mother or who could tell me about this woman that I didn't grow up with. And here I got this chance, and I thought that I'm 70 years old, he's 60 years old. It doesn't matter in life. If the moment presents itself, I could have been someone that would say, oh, I'm going to close my heart off. Who cares? It's all these years later. He's never known about me. So he's someone who just found out a few years back that he had a sister that he never knew existed. But I've known for over 50 years. So I've respected all these people's wishes to not speak my own truth. And I think that that might be part of the answer of this Hashimoto that you're saying is connected to the thyroid. Because I think that's what I just experienced is being able to, I was able to tell this brother what it was like. Who was this mother? I got to talk to him about this story that I have no one else left to talk to about. So it was anyway, it was a very beautiful experience and a very huge healing. And I thought to myself, you were my next podcast after all of this going on. So the timeliness of the people that are my guests somehow intuitively connect with the experiences I'm having in life at the same time. And I always hope that when we share these stories on the podcast, it helps heal or helps for another person to say connect to you or to whomever to find some answers for themselves. So I just want you to know how much it means to me that you're here today and that we're discussing these particular issues because they're very front and center for me right now.
And also about your legs, you were saying that you were unable to walk. So the leg represents the root chakra, and the root chakra is your stability, security, and your relations with your parents. So most likely it came up the relationship with your mom, and then how you couldn't probably spend time with her or know her. So that was probably the leg issue.
I, I I'm I'm feeling that the things that were coming up were from deep rooted things, not just because my cartilage might be getting less or whatever.
And the thing is that when people start dealing with these traumatic experiences like much earlier, like in their 30s, then they can prevent these diseases. That's the key. So when you already know that you went through some stuff, you already know that there is something which is, boiling in you, some anger, some emotional, like the triggers, is coming, then the triggers are the signs that you have buried traumas and you need to start working on it and release it and heal it. Otherwise they become diseases after time because of piling up, because there is always the triggers gonna come and hit you and is always going to create those emotional reactions and is blocking the chakras, and then it's blocking the chakras, the area of the chakra is start the organs get affected, and the well-being of the organs is getting worse. So that's why it's important to start the healing as soon as possible. And then the other thing is sometimes you don't even know where is it coming from. Like people say, oh, I don't remember any trauma in my childhood. But if you have physical illnesses and if you have triggers, that means you had some trauma either in this childhood, but might you haven't really, it wasn't terrifying, but it was something which like deeply affected you emotionally, but you can't recall it. It's buried in the unconscious mind. And maybe it was just your first walk to the kindergarten, when you felt like it was the first time your parents left you there, and then
Mhm.
it wasn't traumatic, but still created some emotional, some negative emotions. And then the other things are the past life situations. I had many clients when they came to me to do the 30 days program, and we had like 4 private sessions doing the source memory healing, which means picking up like on healing the current situation, and going back to see where is it coming from. And often they just go back to past lives because this is originated from there, from their past life experiences when they were maybe a witch, or they were in prison, or they were a slave, or they were in certain situations and they were betrayed and hurt, and that was still piling up. Because many people think that when someone dies then they are happy in heaven, because they don't have the physical body anymore, they don't have the physical pain. That's true, but they have still their soul carrying still all the emotional burdens. When you do like family constellation therapies and we bringing back the spirits into our body for the healing, I feel their pain, I feel their rage, I feel their anger and everything they went through, and we need to heal those ancestors and get them back to the forgiveness and healing. And that's like a ripple effect into our life. And in my program, it's made much easier because I have special meditations for that, which like really long, like 40, 50 minutes meditations, which going through this like a mini family constellation therapy, but in a meditative state, you connect with your family unconscious and you going into those details and you heal it through.
I have to say, one, I became a Reiki master in Hawaii, and was a very the whole Reiki program was a wonderful program to go through, and I have had this experience of what you're talking about. But now I'm saying to myself, well, I've done all these things, but I'm still dealing with this stuff. It still has some, like, no matter how many retreats I've done or how many other these things I've done, there's still triggers in there, and they do end up putting me into places where It isn't doing loving things for my body. I mean, I'd love to be able to become a different, like, I don't know how, I don't have that discipline. And you write about, I don't know if you can talk about the 5 things you need to create good habits, but I need those. I don't know what they are, and I'm so bad at this. I don't know why I have no discipline. But for other people, and I was initiated as a Buryat Mongolian shaman by a Mongolian who had come here from Mongolia, saying that, I've been told I'm a healer since I'm a teenager. And I did medical diagnosis then on stage when I was 15. So it's not like I haven't been on this path a really long time. It's just that I've never been able to do focus on me with it. For helping others, I have no problem, and I'll drop anything to help another person. But for my own self, it's like, I don't have time for that. So I'm wondering about your 5 things you need to create good habits, and if you're allowed to talk about this right now.
It's really interesting because so where we how we deal with this. So it's you saying about discipline, you say about you want better habits, you want to stop yourself not to because you believe that it's your habits which created all of this misery, right? And but the others, but we need to understand that as you become more mindful, it's everything starts with the meditations, like the powerful meditations, the samadhi, which is bringing you into transcendental state. Why is that? When you activate the pineal gland and you get into transcendental state, you start to produce more of the necessary hormones, the serotonin, the melatonin, the growth hormone, the oxytocin. So you become a more focused person, having better sleep, having better mood, having a more vital body, and also becoming a kinder person. So as soon as you start practicing this meditation on a daily basis, it's transforming you to a more disciplined person, a more calmer person, a more like someone who would do those things for yourself, eventually. So it's not like an overnight success, like nothing, it takes time as you build up yourself. Basically what you do is you raising your vibration, and as you raise your vibration to the vibration of the universe is the self-healing starts. And it's also you are in a high vibration, you stop needing those things which is low vibrational. So what happened to me with the Reiki, you talked about the Reiki. When I became a Reiki master and then I started to do Reiki healing on myself with the master science for like 6 months every day, what happened is I raised my vibration so high that I stopped eating certain food groups. Like, oh, that happened overnight, but it was a result of 6 months healing. And
Mhm.
what happened is I woke up and then I realized when I went to the kitchen that I can't eat certain food anymore, which was the dairy products, the sugar, the white sugar, like a processed sugar, and the processed like the white flour and alcohol as well. So these 4 things I suddenly stopped eating, and anything which included them, I just couldn't put it into my mouth. I even tricked myself. I wanted to eat my favorite chocolate. I put it in my mouth, but I had to spit it out. So it was so powerful, like a blockage in my brain, which was created through the frequencies which I applied so much into me, when I was healing. And since today, I can't eat those things. And what happened is, it was 8 years ago, it was in 2017. And what happened is, as to the results, I dropped 20 kilos because I was overweight. I didn't like how I looked. I was 73 back then. And like in every month, like 2, 3 kilos started to melt off because of my new diet, which was effortless because it's just the switch in my brain that I
Right.
couldn't eat those food anymore. So the habits can be changed many ways. One of the way is like if you do the meditations, if you do the energy healings, is raising your vibration and you suddenly don't feel like you want to cravings of those things. The other thing what you can do is basically uh, there is certain meditations plus you can add something into the samadhi, which is one of them is the karmic depths release for intoxication. It's on my YouTube channel actually, so anybody can try it who's suffering from addictions. Because on my YouTube channel is the magical karma priestess, and I have a playlist, and one of them is this intoxication. What happens is that you intoxication means you overeat, you overindulge, in alcohol, drugs, food, whatever it is, even you jeopardizing your body because you're overdoing something. And that's when you intoxicate yourself. And what happens is that you basically, when you do this meditation, is releasing from the past when you ever done this, and is also going to prevent you to do it in the future, because it's like replacing the things and healing the things in the Akashic record level. So that one of the meditation, the intoxication meditation. There is another meditation which is good for addictions and cravings and overeating, is the ancestral defect release. Because very often why you are craving, why you are overeating is not you who's doing it, but there are some spirits which is kind of hijacked your body. And when is it happening? So when you are in low vibration, when you are having uh, negative emotions, like you are sad, you are angry, you are disappointed, you feel like you want to eat and drink alcohol or consume, more food, is because your aura start have holes, is breaking because of your low vibration. You are blocking the chakras and the aura start to have holes. So these spirits who's hanging around you, and most of the time these are your ancestors, they come in and using your physical body because they are happy now they can indulge, so they lost their body, they died, but they couldn't go to light, they stuck here in 4D, and they are actually disturbing you, your energy field, because they want you to have them. They want you to have them to go to light, they cannot, so they just stick around, and then they're not just doing these cravings and overeating and addictions, but they can also stop you to actually move forward. They are energetically heavily holding you back. So when my clients start practicing this ancestral defect release meditation, they start to feel liberated, much lighter, and they get rid of some of their addictions, which were initiated by these spirits.
Could you tell our listeners slowly your website where they're able to find these meditations? Because I was actually listening to them before you came on the show, and I was a little late for you to meet you because I got so involved in doing the meditation there and I was enjoying it. So I was wondering if you could tell them that so that ones who are not watching on YouTube can hear on Spotify or wherever they're listening how to find you on your website.
Oh, okay. So if someone goes to my website is editbikis.com, so it's my name. And from my website, they can actually reach out to all my social media. They can reach out to my, because there is a button, so they can click on the YouTube button, so they can go to my playlist, or they can reach out to my podcast is also one of the tab on my website, so they can click on my podcast to listen to that. Yeah, basically not everything is out there for free, obviously. Like the intoxication meditation is out there, but these ancestral healing meditations they are only available in my school community. So if someone wants to go deeper into their healing, then I highly recommend to join my school community, where they can have access to my other, like the bigger meditation library. They can have access to my courses and workshops, and they can also have bonuses like a one-on-one healing session with me. So my school community is called actually Release with Ease, like my show. So when
Yes,
someone goes
I
to,
enjoyed the show.
yeah, so when you go to school.com, you go to discoveries and you just add Release with Ease, and then you will find the school community. Yeah.
And is Release with Ease every Friday at 2 p.m.? I wasn't sure I hit.
Easter time. Yeah,
Yes,
it's 2 p.m. Easter time every Friday. Yes.
and Eastern Time in the United States.
Yes, yes.
Yes, okay. And I just want to repeat your website. I'm going to spell it slowly for anyone that might not be as fast as you. It's capital EDIT, capital B dot, last name, capital KISS. So it's
There is
editbkiss.com.
no dot. There is no dot after the B.
Oh,
So it's
sorry, no dot. Okay.
everything together. Edit B kiss and
Edit B Kiss. So
.com. Yes,
EDITBKISS.com. And you'll
yes.
be able to find the links to all the different things that we're talking about on the show today.
Yes.
So um there's so we're looking about thinking about good habits. And I'm also wondering things about, is there anything more I think I understand about changing. What I'm getting is that and I've noticed that when I've done retreats where I've done silent meditation for 9 days, or uh, retreats on death and dying, or about the spiritual care of the living and dying. Whenever I'm at these retreats, you're always served usually very non-stimulating food. So the food is always very simple. And when you leave there, for, like a first week that you're gone, that seems to carry with you. But then after another 2 weeks, you're home already, you're back to your same old ways.
Well, it's completely fine. It's completely fine. What's happening is that on those retreats, why you are having vegan or vegetarian dishes, because you want to raise your vibration to reach those higher dimensions for the healing or for the channeling. So you need to eat high vibrational food. Why is the meat a low vibrational food? Is because when the animal is dying, they are going through low, like negative emotions, right? They are scared, they are feeling all kinds of emotions when they are dying. So the meat carries those low vibrational emotions. So it wouldn't allow you to experience those highs what you need to experience in those retreats. So it's very conscious decision that don't eat meat while you are on the retreat, because then you wouldn't have the same benefits or the same jumps or shifts in the retreat, you know. So then when you come home, you still in the high vibe for a while, and then maybe your body is still like, oh, I don't feel like eating meat because I'm high vibration, I have to match my vibration. But then you get into the daily situations, the triggers, the stress, everything is your vibration going to drop, and then you're already reaching out to the meat and those low vibrational food. So in my case, what happened is that when I went to a retreat to India with my karma guru for this Shiva retreat, I was there for 2 weeks and we had the vegetarian diet. Even the vegetarian diet was sometimes too heavy for me. I had to skip lunch because I got saturated with the cooked food, the Indian cooked food, and then I was just wanted to eat raw food for lunch, and it was really hot as well. And then when I returned back from that retreat, then I went to the Shechem healing course, which was a whole weekend. And before Shechem, I was already on a raw diet for like 2, 3 days. And then after Shechem, I kept the raw diet for another 3 months because I was just so high vibrating. The Shechem energies are really powerful, really high vibrating energies. And I had loads of them at one weekend because I took the 1 and 2 at the same weekend. So it was like a accelerated class because I already been a Reiki master. They said I can do it in a weekend. So I was like, okay. So it was really raised my vibration. So after like 3 months, I actually gave up and then I started to eat cooked meal again when I was actually with some friends, and then their food smelled really good. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna start eating cooked meal again. And yeah, so and vegan, I was vegan for 3 years, and I think because of the same thing that I wanted to experience. So when you can experience more growth in your spirituality if you are vegan. But
Hmm.
then you reach a certain point that you become so powerful with your spirituality, you know how to deal with all kinds of energies. You can alchemize all kinds of vibrations. And then when I realized that, and then also my body needed meat because of my iron deficiency, I felt like, okay, now I'm gonna go back to eating meat, and I was able to alchemize the vibration of the meat, so it doesn't bother me. It's not lowering my vibration basically, because I was already trained on other protection, energy, and I've done so many healings that it's not a problem for me anymore. But so yeah, so if you go through a lot of retreats and healings, it's highly recommended to do vegan meal because then your shift is faster,
Hmm.
your experience is better, but then you can return to the original diet basically, which is better for your body with the meat.
I do want to mention what you were saying about when a person eats meat, when it's commercial meat that you're buying in the store, the animal has gone through such terror and fear on the death, and that gets transferred into the meat that you're eating. So I got to experience a humane killing of a sheep when we were in the steppes in Mongolia with the nomads. And when you see the killing of the sheep there, you realize how, because there's more animal population there than there is people in the country of Mongolia. And these sheep are leaving a very peaceful life, and they're moving around in the grasslands. And when they took the sheep, they just put a little leash on his little around his neck and brought him over, and they laid him down. There was no He was just eating his grass. He was not crying. There was no stress. And I held his head in my lap while the father of the family cut a very small incision. And the sheep wasn't like freaking out or anything like this. And he put his hand up inside and felt the aorta part of the heart, and he pinched it closed. And the sheep just let out its last breath while its head was in my lap. And it was a beautiful passing. It wasn't a violent. And then immediately he was cut up and every part of his body was used. And we ate the meat with potatoes and carrots, and it was cooked over a wood stove there in the middle of nowhere. And that meat was not like meat that you ever buy in a store, because that meat had none of that experience. That animal just left pleasantly. And it just gave me a lesson right there and then of what an animal is going through when you're being herded off and being killed violently. I've heard stories of slaughterhouses and horrible things that go on. So that eating the kind of meat where the animal is something you raise yourself or that you kill in a more peaceful way, I think will then produce a healthier meat for us to eat. So there's something about the times that we're in right now which seems very appropriate as I was reading about another 5 ways you have, which is the 5 ways to develop serenity during anxious times. And I think that it was published in a magazine called The Authority magazine. Is that correct?
Wow, it was a long time ago. It was
Okay. It
during
says,
oh, it was COVID time. It was during
yes,
COVID.
during COVID. And I'm thinking now about the amount of stress in the media going on right now in our country and the state of the condition of what's happening, and your idea to be able to share 5 ways to develop serenity during anxious times. I'm wondering if this is something you can talk or share with our listeners about, because people are really stressed right now, and some people don't even want to listen to the news anymore. Some people are listening to it every day, and it's making them very, very stressed out. And being stressed out isn't going to help our situation. We want the situation to be able to have hope. And I'm wondering how this serenity during anxious times, if you had that during the pandemic, that might be something very helpful for right now as well.
It's interesting because that was back in 2020, so it was 5 years ago. And I am growing, evolving, changing as well in 5 years. So I have to be honest, I don't even remember what were there because it was a long time ago. But and so on these 5 years, as I was developing healing and learning other modalities, probably I have a different way now how I would approach that actually how I did back then, right? So when people so I always, yeah, I can give many like advices, like a 5 advice about it, like how to deal with this.
Current, yeah, whatever
Yeah,
comes to you for now
yeah,
to help people for
exactly.
now.
Yeah, so the first thing is it's a good idea actually to set boundaries with your own self and not watching the news, as you were mentioning it. So limiting watching the news, limiting knowing about terrible things outside of you, because you need to control those 3 things which we talked about, your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions. And what you cannot control, you need to let it go. So what can you control? Can you really control it? Are you sitting in the Senate? Are you close to the fire, or you can really make a difference? Then go and do it. But if you are not in the position, or you not wanna go out there and make a difference, then just don't watch it. It's like when people watching war in other countries, or watching terrible situations in other countries, then all right, then send donations or pray for them, but don't sit just there and feel sorry, because it's not good for you, because the sorrow is closing the heart chakra, actually is making worse your own health, is like causing the stress, and whatever you feel when you are sorry for other people is like closing the heart chakra, is creating more, high blood pressure, heart diseases, whatever it's happening. So, and then the other thing is like, many people don't really recognize it, but not only the news, but when they watching movies, which is very heavy, there are very heavy movies out there, horror movies, drama, thrillers, those can have similar effect, and then it's like a programming, in the society to bring your vibration down. So if you want to feel more in peace, stop watching those things which making you nervous or anxious or triggered, right? Watch rom-coms, or or I don't know, or just go for a
Comedy.
yeah, yeah. So the other thing which I would recommend is really think about what you eat and drink, because it's so much affecting your behavior and your mental health. I also find it in my life really crucial to know that vitamins, supplements, having nutrients in your body, it's really, if you have lack of those, it amplifies the syndromes of mental health. For example, vitamin B, the iron, the magnesium, when I had deficiency in those, I was more anxious. And it's also the panic attacks. Like when somebody has panic attacks, if they are on a vegan diet and they not properly creating their vegan diet, they not properly watching their, their nutrients and vitamins and supplements, they can have panic attacks and anxiety because of the lack of whatever is in the meat normally, and they don't replace it with proper food. So it really needs to be watched when you are having lack of supplements, because it's amplifying your anxiety, stress, and panic attacks. The other thing is also caffeine. We are in a caffeine drinking culture, like every corner is a coffee shop. In every corner. So when you are anxious, when you're a nervous person, when you're someone who's having depression and panic attacks, don't drink coffee, because, or anything which has caffeine, because it's increasing, again, amplifying these sensations and these situations. Just stop drinking that. And then the best thing is to drink the rooibos tea. It's also called the red tea or red bush tea, which is a very pleasant taste tea. It has zero caffeine and is actually helping to mitigate the syndromes of the caffeine withdrawal, the withdrawal syndromes. So when people are not having coffee so for a while, and then they had that custom, they can have migraine, they can feel bad. So if you start drinking this red tea, the rooibos tea, then basically you don't feel these syndromes, and you are peacefully can transform your from caffeine into a better life without caffeine. So that would be one thing. And then alcohol. Yeah, right. So there are these things, like first watching the diet, watching what you eat, what you put into your body is also helping with your mental health. What you see, what you watch, creating the boundaries. And then again, with the people, like who's surrounding you, who's in your surrounding, like who you spend time with, what kind of people you spend time with. Because if they are the ones who's loud and criticizing and judging, and there is lots of jealousy and gossiping around you, and you are in that environment, it's creating a more stress in your life and more triggers, and if so, when you start but I have to tell you, when you start your healing journey, when you really start the healing with source memory healing, with meditations, with going deep, and raising your vibrations from there, after letting go of those things, it's gonna change. Is as you change inside, the outside gonna change as well. It's gonna reflect back. What's gonna happen as you start healing and changing your vibration? The people who's not at your frequency, they can't find you anymore, and they're gonna go away from you. So it says, there is a saying that elevation requires separation. So when you elevate, you separate from the low vibrational situations, not just people, but situations as well. Suddenly you find yourself on a different space, when you actually take the time to heal. And when you start healing, you take the responsibility of your own health. You're not just healing yourself, but you're healing your ancestors and your lineage as well. So it's like a ripple effect. People sometimes comes to me that they feel stuck, they feel unhappy, and they also don't like how their parents behave or whatever. And then I always tell them that just start your healing yourself, and you're gonna see that your parents will change. And that's what happens. That after a couple of weeks of doing the sessions, they are like, oh my God, even my father treats my mom differently now that I'm doing the healing, because it's affecting everything. We're working in the multidimensional existence. We're working with all the layers with these meditations and healings. These are 60,000 years old karma yogi techniques, Adi Yogi Shiva techniques, and they are very powerful.
I was wondering, since we're speaking about that right now, if there's maybe one or two, whatever you feel up to, stories of a success that you don't have to say the person's name to give them their privacy, but if you could share an experience of someone who came to you and had a successful healing and is continued on with that after doing, I'm not sure if it was all the meditation or a course with you or what they actually did, but if you could share an example for someone to hear.
Yeah, so I of course I have many of those. Some of them who were, I told you that some of them were already Reiki masters or healers and stuff, and then they actually wanted to learn this. They were so shocked about the results because they did hypnotherapy, they did, other healings, and nothing helped them. And eventually this was the one which was able to allow them to help from PTSD. That's what they were many times dealing with, an abuse relationship, a childhood trauma, they came with the PTSD and nothing was able to release it for them. And it was always there bothering them, creating fear and all kinds of anxiety. And after we did the program, they were like, where can they learn it? Because they were already, in the healing business. They already had clients, but they
Mhm.
were like, where can we learn this so we can also, help our clients with this modality? So then I created the course and then I teach them. So I have a facilitator course as well when people can learn this. But what I was saying is that it's really shocking, the results, and then they really loved it so much that they wanted to actually learn it. Just recently I had a client, and I just had an IG live with her today, and she came to me very stressed because she just had a diagnosis from the hospital and she was scared that she has cancer. And she also went through a lot of other challenges in the family, and then in her life, and losing people, grief, so on and so forth. So when we started to work, most of the time when I start working with clients, they come to me with depression, anxiety. They are really sad. You can see on their face that they lost hope. I am their that last hope, because they are like, nothing worked. What can I do now? So they come very sad. But after a couple of weeks, I see them smiling, shining, bright. It's just so much fun to see them like that. And with this lady, we did that 4 weeks, the 30 days incubator. And then a couple of weeks later, I was seeing her like everywhere, on social media. And then she's doing that, she's doing that. I was like, and then I even text her like, what's going on with you, girl? And then she's like, oh, you can't imagine. I feel this way, that way. I feel so great and empowered and confident. And I'm just feel so amazing. And thank you for helping me. And then, yeah, so that's why she jumped on an IG call with me today. And then another was, and there was a person who suffered from PTSD since childhood because of her father. The father was abusing her basically every time she was doing something, and so she grew up like that. And then now she was in her 30s, 40s, and she had children. And she had to see her father every day because he was a grandfather and come to see the kids, like a grandchildren to play with or help in the family or whatever. And she said that it's every day she's there in that, in her mind, looking at him and seeing that, oh my God, he hurt me when I was a child, and living with that for decades. And then eventually she heard me on a podcast speaking about this, and then she reached out, and basically we went through the healings. First, she couldn't believe that it's possible to heal. You know, many people is skeptic that how it is possible to get rid of this, which when it's with me for decades, you know. So then we did the sessions, we did the healings, and she went through the meditations and everything. And eventually she was so in peace that it did not bother her anymore, you know, like it was everything was like normal, like having the father around and then being with the kids. So she was completely in peace. And another thing happened that she reported me later, that the father was telling it to her husband that, you know, I'm really sorry what I did for my about my daughter when she was a child. He didn't tell it to her, but he said it to the husband. So as I said about the ripple effect and is reaching the parents as well, it happened to him as well. It's always like. And then there was another client. She didn't do the whole 30 days incubator. She was just in my group community, in my school membership, and then she had the bonus session with me. And what she was saying it after the session, that she never felt so much peace since she was 4 years old, and she was in her 60s. So
Wow.
it's really powerful because we go through many memories. So in this source memory healing, basically, the unconscious mind, as we connect with the unconscious mind, where is the traumas are buried, is bringing in the memories into the consciousness, and we go through them and we release them. And sometimes it's two memories, sometimes it's seven, which is related to your current issue. And the current issue doesn't need to be like a mental illness, or it doesn't need to be a physical illness. It can be anything which is triggering you. It can be a relationship issue. It can be a noisy neighbor. And then when we do the session and we start working with the triggers and the emotions, that's when comes up the memories and we heal them. And it has like a energetic effect in the whole system. You know, I call it the karma vortex. It's opening up, and then it start to affect everybody in that aspect, and then changing the whole situation.
I have to say, I've seen that happen where the ripple effect, and it's mind blowing. And I think it can also even happen when, even if we have forgiveness or love with people that have actually deceased, it doesn't mean we can't still heal that. Just because their body's not here, we can still connect to them on a spiritual level and say how we feel. So uh, I have a couple more questions, and then we're coming up on our hour, almost about a minute or so. And I want to find out. I have one question about. I read about that you use something called the landmark approach when you learned life coaching. And I was wondering, was the landmark, was that something that originated from the forum or Est or
Um,
Earhart?
Yes, so my teachers, they were studied that landmark forum, and that was their background. And then I was learning from them. They were my first life coaching teachers. Yeah. So it's also about mindfulness. It's also about speaking your truth. It's also about taking action. You know, it's like knowing that not holding yourself back is basically because we have the higher self and we have the ego. And the
Mhm.
higher self is when you have an intuitive thoughts, you have an inspiration to take action. And then you have the ego, which is like fear based. And is mostly the ego, the fear based ego is which holding you back not to take the action. And sometimes you have like heartfelt uh, wishes, you know, like, oh, I wish I could do that, I wish I could do this or whatever. But you can, it's just you think you cannot because of your fear and your ego, and then because of you have those limitations or beliefs, because that's what you created when you were a child and you heard it from your environment or society, and that limitation is holding you back. And when you start experiencing that, actually, when you say yes and you take the first step and the first step, and then you suddenly reaching your goals, then you realize you just need to take those steps, and then is nothing to limit there. I was also felt before that when I was approaching certain dreams or I was thinking about certain dreams, like, oh, I need to probably have this condition met before I can reach that. I always had this like, oh, because I was building myself up of goals after goals. I was creating my plans, my goals, my dreams, and then I was like, okay, first step this, second step this, probably this is how I need to get there, filling the gap. But then I realized that it's not always that the case. I don't always need to fill the gaps, or I don't need to always meet the condition. It can just happen if I have that really heartfelt wish and then I just go for it.
I think the example that I read or heard on going through your website about how you ended up in London was an excellent example of what you're talking about. That if you want to just share that story, I thought it was a great example of how we end up in another place.
Yeah, I have actually other countries as well where I just ended up like this. So, so yeah,
You were saying,
So for London was the case when I already had the activation, the pineal gland activation, and then the breadcrumbs started to come from the universe, and then basically I came to an event, and then when I was traveling to this event to London, I was sitting in the taxi, and suddenly I started to cry, and then a word came to me, home. And I was like, oh my God, why is it? I don't like London, I don't want to move here. And then I felt a bit concerned or frustrated what's going on. And then later, after weeks, as it unfolded, and then I was following the breadcrumbs, then I realized that, wow, yeah, it's really calling me. I really probably this is where I have to be or I have to go. And then I was taking just the steps, I was following the breadcrumbs. And eventually, when I needed the money to move as well, you can't move without, a bigger amount. And what happened that we had a weekend house from my father, inherited from my father, and it was on the market for many years. And then, but just then, when I needed the money, that was when a seller came, and then I was able to we were able to sell it, and then I had the exact money, and then I was able to move the date when I wanted to move, and then I was just coming with the children, and. I really love that to see that how the universe supports you when you put your mind into something. And it with this trip, the other saying yes things is that when I was moving to the Netherlands, what happened is that I was offered a job through the phone. They just called me and said, we have a job for you. And then I was at home with my little baby. She was less than 1 year old, like maybe 6 months old when I got this offer. And first I was hesitating, but then they said how much money they would pay me, and it was like 8 times my salary, my current salary. And I was like, holy crap. So then I just have to accept it. But I had to discuss it with my mom to come with us to take care of my daughter while I'm working, so being our babysitter. So she said yes. So the whole family just relocated there because of this new job opportunity I received. And this was really amazing because they put me in a deep water where I learned a lot on a very fast pace. And that later allowed me to get even better jobs or different other positions, with great salary, because that was like a elevation. So I really how can I say that, advise people to say yes to things which feels right or feels like a calling, and then just go for it, because it wasn't easy at the beginning. The first couple of weeks I was like, what am I doing?
exactly.
I had to ask back about everything. I had to learn the things, like even like a year later, I looked back like what I was doing a year earlier. I was like, oh my God. And then how much I improved in a whole year. It's everything. You need to learn everything as you go, It's like you grow your wings as you jump off the tree. Something.
I I I truly know because I've put myself in amazing I've been in different cultures in different places in the world, and I'm grateful for every minute and experience I had, and it's all because I didn't say no. And other people would have said, "What? You're running off by yourself to nowhere in the middle?" Not that. So as I was reading how you were doing this, I felt like I had a similar type of reaction to those things, and that makes us who we are today because we didn't close the door and we didn't say no. And even though our ego, like you said, I liked you using the ego as the word to depict the voice inside you that's saying you can't do that. You're not this, you're not smart enough, you're not strong enough, or whatever the negative things. And I never thought about using the ego as the person that was doing that. So I think that's a very good, the ego and the higher self. Very, they can completely disagree with each other, and the ego was, the higher self is the voice that I want to listen to because I know that one's guiding me there. So I'm just going to quickly look through here to see if there's any other questions that I did not cover, and then see if there's anything else you want to share. Um, oh, you talked about quick energy fixes. Is energy healing a quick fix? And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about that. And then I've covered everything in all my questions.
Yes. So when you were also mentioning about Reiki healing and you mentioned that you've done so much healing, how comes you are still having triggers? How comes you are still experiencing this and that? Because energy healings are like quick fix. Why is that? Energy healing is raising your vibration, but only temporary. Because what they do, they heal, like balance your chakras, right? And then raising your vibration. But what happens next day, you go out there again and then you ruin the whole process with the stress what you're getting into, right? Watching the news, talking to people, getting into crowded places, eating the same shitty food. So basically, you need to go back to another Reiki healing to raise your vibration and balance the chakras. So that's the point. And then why you doing all of those things? Because you haven't healed the roots, or you haven't you feel getting, you still getting triggered, you are still not the right place to be where is you're supposed to be as a high vibrational person. So that's why
Mhm.
you're still putting yourself out into that danger, right? And then so the energy healing is just always raising, cleansing, but then you go back, so that's why people say, oh, at least you need to have 3 Reiki sessions. But then of maybe that's enough for a couple of weeks. But after a couple of weeks, you feel again you need another bunch. So what I see with the Reiki is that when I really had big shift with it or big healings, it was after many months of Reiki healing. Like I had a client who had I don't know that word, but it was about his heart and with angina. I think it's angina. There is a illness called anginas that he can have some seizures, or he can have some attacks, but not heart attack, but like another kind of
Right.
thing.
Angina, I think it's called.
Angina, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So basically he had that issue and he was taking medication sometimes, sometimes he wasn't taking. But then at one time he had like a big like a fainting, and then he got into hospital. So then I was telling him, okay, let's do daily or every second day a healing session, Reiki. So we were doing Reiki for 6 months. And after he had no issues because that was enough time to really heal out or clear out, or also to shift his whole existence into a different dimension, I would say. And that was allowed him to be healthier and taking care of himself more after that 6 months. Because when you do such an intense energy healing, is really changing the whole situation, is really vibrating you always high, and then in that very constant high vibration you actually vibrating with the universe. So it's more of the manifestations are also faster, and part of your manifestation is your well-being, right? So it's
Mhm.
whatever he was wishing for himself and whatever he was working on, it was easier to achieve in that high vibrational energy. So I would recommend, if someone wants to have a shift or a change or deep healing from energy healing, to do it consistently for many months. I would say 6 months. But other than that, I would, if it's something urgent to get rid of, or you want an urgent results and fast results, that more likely you could achieve with the source memory healing, which is much faster.
Mhm. I think that that would give the answer to people when they have one or two healings and they think that that's supposed to be enough. But when you're dealing with something that's been there for a lifetime, it's going to take a little bit longer to be able to, there is no fast, quick, instant, oh, in 3 minutes now you're healed of this and now you go away. So you really need to put some time into healing yourself when you're working on those deep issues. So, this is a point where I ask if there's any words of wisdom or any other stories or anything else you'd like to share before we sign off, and if there's anything else you'd like to tell our listeners.
Yeah, so probably there is a debate on it, like if everybody is having PTSD or not, right? In the world, like how do you know if someone is actually healed? How do you know if someone has issues, right? And then uh, how how you really feel like you don't need healings and you are just great and fine. Is basically the triggers are the signs. Like if you are a peaceful monk or like a Buddha, going around and always being able to be kind and cheerful and loving with everybody and compassionate, then you most likely you don't carry any grudges, or you don't carry any burdens or nothing because you were able to let go, you were able to forgive, and then being in peace with everything, right? Then you are on a good space. But if you are a person who gets triggered by others, on a daily basis, you get angry, you get frustrated, you feel this, you feel that on a low vibrational level, then you definitely need to check those old traumas. You need to heal and release and let go. Like why I am frustrated, why I am angry, why I am triggered. There is something there which need to be healed because if you don't deal with that, then it's gonna become a disease. And then you need to again deal with it on a different level, which is not that nice. So that's what is my recommendation, that you can see, do you need healing? If you are like a Buddha, like a very welcoming, nice, compassionate person who just love everybody, then you are good. But if you are sometimes getting triggered and anxious and nervous and angry, or then you
Panic.
likely have something to deal with.
Hmm. Uh, it seems to me almost everybody falls into that category except for the Buddhists and the monks.
I don't think so. I see sometimes people who's really can be really calm and chill,
Mm.
but the other thing is that some can be a bit so some people who's really seems chill and cool, but then they got maybe a disease later on. It's just they numb themselves, That also a situation. It could be also a situation they have poker face or they know how to numb themselves and then eventually it comes out as a disease. But there are truly people out there who actually were growing up like a happy child. You know what I'm saying? Like they were maybe had a very happy childhood, but also were the child who just didn't care, who was like, it's okay, I don't get bothered, or it's fine. And then it grew up like that never get bothered about anything, because it's take it easy all the time. And those kind of people are in a good space because they don't get bothered by other people, or they don't
Right.
criticize, they let them be, they yeah.
And they're happy. They're
Yes, and they are
contented.
happy.
Yes.
Mhm.
Do you know a lot of those people?
Not a lot, not a lot. So I could probably count them in one hand.
Right, right.
But they exist. So that's why I just want to say that
Yes.
if you are listening this and you say, "Oh, I'm fine," yeah, you could be fine. Yeah, just check on yourself.
Yes. And I always feel like there's always something new to learn, and that's always the important thing, is to keep open to knowing that there's other new things to learn, and that may change for us. Things that may work for us 20 years ago may not work for us now, and we need some other methods that would work better for us. And that's why I love having people like you and others on my show to share what their experiences were going to get them to the place that they're doing healing. I find that a lot of the guests I've had that have had incredible, over, like level 10 traumas, they're all in the healing fields and doing incredible work themselves now with others. And to me, that's such an inspirational and validating situation to show you how much healing can turn around to such a positive thing. So I want to thank you for coming here today. I want to thank you for this time. I want to repeat to our listeners, it's editbkiss.com. And if you check out that website, you'll find some meditations, you'll find some things that are free and some things you can sign up and pay a nominal fee for. and you can connect to other podcasts that our guest today has been on. So, listeners, thank you very much for being here today, Edith. I hope you enjoyed this as much as we did. And I want to thank all you listeners for sticking with us, liking, subscribing, sharing, and following us up into the new 100th episode that'll be coming up shortly in the next couple of weeks. So have a great, great day. And remember, share your stories because you know stories can heal. Bye.